thanks all of you for that introduction. So this is such a big topic to approach in our last panel. So so many different dimensions have been raised here. I guess I'm going to come back to what you said, Niovi, because you set out a kind of vision really for this region, the 3+1 region, for how it can potentially position itself as this AI corridor, innovation corridor, and be attractive in terms of the investment that is already going into AI, and we're going to see much more of that in future. And then you went on to set out this long list of what is required, really, the data centers, the energy supplies, semiconductors, the talent, data, the right verticals, and so on. So yeah, incredibly ambitious vision. And I guess the difficulty here is what government should really be doing. What is the role? What do you think is the best role of government here to facilitate this, to encourage this? And what is the role of the private sector, or how to work together, obviously within this kind of context, this framework of the 3+1, but particularly Greece, Cyprus, Israel, engaging in projects such as the ones that Nati just talked about. So I guess that's my first question. Dimosthenis said at the beginning it's very difficult, for government. I mean, Greece has been a pioneer in terms of the digital governance, accomplished an awful lot, now has these 2,000 services on gov.gr. But how do you see it? How do you see this working in terms? What should governments really, with their resources, what should they be focusing on? How should they, bring in the private sector? How's this going to work?
It may be ambitious, but it's already happening. So there are hyperscalers already present in Greece. Microsoft has an agreement for 4 data centers. Google also has an agreement. There's competition with some French companies, so this is very realistic. I know my former company, AWS, is already investing in the area of Western Macedonia in data centers. So this is very real. But it would be critical to see this accelerate. And what is challenging here is that things have to move in parallel. So we do need the AI infrastructure, which also, again, I insist, has a huge and interesting geopolitical imprint, and can work in tandem with concerns around the country's security, around energy, around cooperation in the region. These are all very critical elements, especially the flow of energy. We definitely have the talent, and as you know, also, the university legislation in Greece has been liberalized recently, so there's this huge potential for cooperation between different R&D labs and universities from abroad, from the US, from Greece, from the region. So I think there's actually a plethora of talent. And I know myself as an investor and as a former Amazonian that I have to talk about my country of origin, Greece. It has some of the best engineers, and some of the biggest global tech companies are really like killing each other to get some of this talent to work for them. I do want to highlight data and data governance. It's key, and I would very much like to see Greece lead an initiative around a Mediterranean regional data hub or a federated sort of like data system that will be able to be utilized both for on-edge and cloud applications. As we're moving slowly like towards this model of utilizing sovereign data and not having to relocalize data, which is very important. And again, it may sound like, to these who are not lawyers, it may sound like a little bit technical and boring, but it's not. And we also see this in VC. It sparks currently innovation and investments, because it's also about, I can't say all about the data, but data is a critical component of that. And the region has amazing, unique data around bioclimatic change, immigration, for example, also with geopolitical implications. This is very unique to the area of the Mediterranean. Maritime, immigration, deterrence patterns, flow of people. I would like to see this data organized, securely hosted in Greece with very clear, transparent data governance frameworks. That's something that only the governments can do, by the way, the data governance framework. And I think it's a great field for private-public partnerships with tech companies joining into this major framework or infrastructure kind of work. I don't know if that answers the question, but it's not. I mean, it's a vision, but you only need that. You need some critical strategic movements to fine-tune it because the components are there, they're happening, it's very real. And that's why I think that it would be critical to ensure partnership within the region. Because nobody, for example, contests the fact that Israel is so far ahead in AI and tech, and more importantly also in AI investment. But if the region, if the chorus, as Mr. Pribus said earlier, joins forces and attracts US venture capital money into the region, for example, right? In the US, VC always looks for new opportunities and new investments. We have the money, we don't have the innovation sometimes. So that's another great opportunity for regional cooperation to attract capital. Governments should ensure that the legislative framework is in place to ensure the free flow of talent and capital. And there's more I could go on around like IP, make sure IP and technology transfer is frictionless across borders and different stakeholders. And always keep in mind that the algorithmic manipulation that can happen through selective data can have the impact of missiles. Again, I'm going back to the theme of data and how important it is for the region to harvest, store securely, and verify its data. That alone could be like such a huge advantage in this AI arms race.
Okay, thanks. So, well, I'm going to come back now to you, Dimosthenis, to hear your view on, on this kind of vision that has been set out.
Okay.
Do you think that you set out the kind of three parallel tracks on which your ministry is working? Do you see this as a kind of realistic vision, say over the medium term, the next 5 years?
So I think I'd like to be more concrete in the results that I'm going to present and targets that I set. Yes, Greece has so far attracted a lot of investments from hyperscalers, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Digital Realty also, which is a US company, have already invested in Greece greatly. And I think this has to do with the very flexible investment framework and also the tax incentives that so far are provided by this government. This is a success of this government. And when we need to speak about the future, I think we also have to see issues such as subsea cabling, which is also very critical, and also energy. And I think that there are energy supplies which can sustain this type of development so far in Greece. So I'm very optimistic about the future. And I'm also very optimistic in terms of the political climate and the stability that this government offers. And this also reflects on the, I would say, financial conditions of this country. So I'm very optimistic. But concerning AI, I have to say that you have to be very pragmatic in terms of what the EU says, in terms of the AI Act, regulation, etc., etc., and also take into account political decisions and conditions. And I think this is the great importance of this conference, and I'd like to thank economists for this very kind invitation, and also Nectaria, because more particularly, because I think that it's very important to have the capability to discuss such issues and also to discuss with your allies. And the issue of AI, I think, to my understanding, is an issue of trust, because algorithmic evaluation is something that cannot perform by yourself again and again as a European EU member, and also as an ally to other partners. It's something that you can trust. It doesn't have also to do with the algorithm evaluation per se. It also has to do with the algorithms and the products, the AI products that you can use. And it's a matter of trust with whom you share these products. And I believe this is very important for this discussion and for this conference, the outcomes of this conference. Also, I think that in terms of regulation, it's very important to being able, both in terms of our Greek origin and also as Europeans, to come up with some common understanding as a common denominator, as a minimum of acceptable practice in AI, which should be employed worldwide, I mean, at a global scale. Because otherwise, this would lead to AI, to an AI paradise, such as the taxation paradise, and this would not be of benefit to any of the countries of that take part in this conference, I think. So we need to come up with some principles, discuss with our allies and UN and EU and other countries to come up with common principles for the acceptable AI practices. This has to be performed at a global scale. But the most important issue is to build corridors, yes, corridors of trust with allies and partners, and exchange ideas, practices, best practices, trust on algorithms and algorithm products, AI algorithm products, and also to have the ability to evaluate algorithms and products in real time, or as much possible as soon as possible, which is of utmost importance. Last but not least, concerning the issue of data. I'm afraid that in our country we have not been so far able to provide large sets of data, especially open data. But it's true that we have to do so, and we have to come up with a framework to take into account what's needed according to the Digital Act, and also to be able to somehow get value from this data. So we'd much appreciate good practices, best practices from such I would say partnerships, and being able to listen to and cooperate and collaborate, and yes, come up with solutions across the public and the private sector, and also with our allies that enable us to get the best of our data in the time to come. So, to conclude, trust is the most important issue of AI, to my understanding, and I think to have to build up on this. Thank you.
Thank you. We're obviously at the end of the conference, and we've run over our time, but just wanted to give the other three speakers a chance to come back on a few points, and we'll be wrapping up in about 5 minutes. So Nati, just coming back to you, obviously you emphasized in your opening remarks the importance of cooperation, but I just wanted to ask you, obviously Israel is kind of quite far ahead at the moment in terms of the sophistication of its kind of tech ecosystem and innovation ecosystem. So just what lessons can Cyprus and Greece take from the Israeli experience in terms of building such an ecosystem?
I mean, for Israel, the high tech sector is like is a natural resource, and it has grown to be in such a way, maybe partly because of our necessity that created a very vibrant entrepreneurship ecosystem. I think it's very difficult to compare. I think it's each country has its strengths. And I reemphasize what I've said before, that we should leverage on each other's strengths. And I've seen this in my visits to Cyprus and my hopefully soon to become a Greek one. That each one has their strength, and I think that this is something that we need to try and work together on doing this. And I think the AI era is an enormous one, and this has been also suggested here in terms of joint trust on using AI and joining data sharing. I think it's very crucial as a good starting point.
Okay, thank you. The final question to John and to Alexandra. This question that's been raised by the Secretary General, and John indeed raised it as well, about the dangers of people being left behind in as we seeing these incredible advances in tech and digital and AI, and as you emphasized, John, the education system is not really fit for purpose at the moment in Cyprus, and probably in Greece too. Things are changing, I think, quite quickly, but the Secretary General emphasized the importance of reskilling, upskilling, AI literacy, and so on. So I just wanted to ask you what's been done in your region, for example, Attica, to address this problem. And John, what do you see as the answer here? Is it just about changing the education system, or is it about actually changing the environment to the extent that people actively want to go out and learn themselves?
So I think we've gone too far too soon. And we're talking about AI. AI is in our lives, especially from a certain age and older. But I've seen, let's say in the United Arab States, there is a minister of AI. And last week, I think the lesson of AI now is mandatory in schools. So I think we have to look at this very seriously. We have to engage our kids and our nations with the new technologies. First and most important thing for me is education and how to use these systems, because the way you use these systems will change our lives on a good way or on a bad way. And at the same time, we need to be able to audit this algorithm. So by auditing the artificial intelligence and the way that these systems work will give us the result that we honestly want to have. I think these two are the most important things in my view. Education early on from school to university and later reskilling and upskilling, of course, and at the same time auditing algorithms in order to be efficient, ethical, and correct.
Great, thank you, Alexandra.
Just closing very, very briefly, I agree, of course, with what John said. However, technology is definitely an equalizer. But because we are business people, don't forget, Europe is an ambitious continent. So we see that the EU gives us a lot of funds. In Greece, we have the Resilient Fund, it's a 32 billion. We have Horizon Europe, we have all different type of structural funds, and also the public sector. And what we are trying to do is what you said, nobody to be left out, which means that SMEs, which is 98% of the Greek economy, should be helped by the government. The government already has some tools, and they are really helping, because we are talking about the green transition in Europe, but we are also talking about digital transformation. And this can only be done with the EU funds, with the government tools, and of course all of us that we are actually helping on this dimension. because we have to have the initiators and the people that are the companies and the enterprises that are actually trying to be digitally updated. AI is here. We have to take the best aid out of that, and we have to be positive about it in a specific framework. I have a lot to say, but I think I see it's 000 there, so I think I don't have it.
Yes, it's 000 for me too. I think.
I hope it's not 000 for us businesses, eh?
But please,
It's the beginning.
yeah, thanks everybody in the room. Please join me in thanking all our speakers. Before we have a photograph, I just want to say once again to thank all our speakers, all the participants, all of you in the audience, our sponsors, the University Club of New York for providing this fantastic venue. In particular, I want to thank our kind of patron saint, Gerald Seaman, Esquire, who's been a wonderful friend to the Economist team. Thank you for all your help, Gerald. And finally, thank you to Nectaria Pasirivakis and her wonderful team, who've worked very hard to make this such a successful event. I think one that goes from strength to strength every year. Next year, we'll be back for our 7th summit. I hope you all enjoyed it and see you again next year. Thank you.